So after round 6 today at the Sharjah Masters, I'm joined by Grandmaster Aleksandar Indjic. Aleksandar, it's always a pleasure to speak to you and to have you. Aleksandar, you won an excellent game today against the Chinese Grandmaster Dai Changren. Can you just tell us a little bit about your game? I mean, I noticed to start off with, you played knight f3. Was this maybe to kind of avoid some prep from a slightly less known competitor?
It was more or less dual because first and foremost, I wanted to surprise him a little bit in the opening. Also, I think he's overall quite underrated because I played with him in Dubai last year and was defeated convincingly, so I knew that he is really good. And after trying to understand his style better, I wanted to get something strategic because I realized that there is a tendency of him of being too solid at times. And I wanted to kind of keep some control, if possible, to surprise him. And after lots of thought, I came up together with my helper with knight f3, d5, g3 solution. So
I mean, I saw, you know, even by like move 6 or something, this you're basically out of relatively.
Yeah, probably I misplayed something. I was mostly expecting for him to go for the knight c6 line that he already played, and there I spent quite a lot of time. Unfortunately, he went for knight d7. Knight d7, one of the modern tries, but good thing about White's position is it's strategic in nature, easy to play even without prep, but on the other hand, Black has so many interesting options, so it's not really easy to cover everything. So I knew that knight c3 is one of the most interesting moves. And now, after knight h4, bishop g4, queen d3, I more or less knew that something like this, I mean, I was aware that this exists. I was not 100% certain that this was my prep, but I was hoping it was. So he went for e6, e4, and now there is an interesting battle about if I'm going to be able to catch this bishop and to trade it. Yeah. If I'm successful in that, then I can hope for a small advantage. So I thought that inclusion of h3 was good. And now a little bit strange maneuver of the knight, but with the simple idea of just grabbing the bishop and hoping to get some small edge with the bishop here.
Yeah, just keeping pressure.
So, however, in this, sorry.
Jumped forward a bit.
Yeah, in this concrete position, probably as it seems that knight g2, probably it was not the best decision because for some reason I thought it is going to work, but move by move, bishop b4 and d4. But luckily for me, he took d4. And here I was quite happy with how things were going. And he went bishop g6. And now, actually, I think he underestimated my move. Probably he was counting on knight f4, bishop e4, or knight f6, probably bishop e4, queen e4, knight f6. And then we're going to train pair of knights because my knight on f4 is a little bit stuck in a way. And if I exchange pair of knights, it's going to be easier for him to keep the position completely solid. But I think it's a small little nuanced move, and it's much more important because if he allows me, I'm going to take knight g6. If he takes as he did in the game, then I have a very interesting rerouting of the knight via f3 and then good control of it via e5. And compared to this, I'm keeping the extra light piece, and that actually makes a big change. So he went for bishop e7, knight f3, and here I was pretty satisfied with how the opening went. Queen e2, queen d5. He decided to go for the solid variation and queen d5 with an interesting idea. If we exchange queens, he gets a nice control over d5 and c4 pawns. So I went for principal knight e5, queen e2, king e2, knight fd7. I think a pretty solid decision by him because, as I said, if we exchange pair of knights, it's going to be easier for him with the remaining pieces to create some action. And knight d3 I played a little bit too quickly, and maybe it was not the best move because I a little bit underestimated that. I was mostly focused on him going long castle and c5. Right. So I was trying mostly this, and then I realized, but why would he go for bishop f6 and e5? Yeah. And then he had a similar thought process, and he went for e5. And now position becomes extremely concrete because if he's in time to sort of reduce material, everything could be potentially pretty straightforward and can lead to a more or less solid position and draw in a way. So with that being said, I had to make some smart decision in this, and I realized it's a critical moment, and I spent quite a lot of time. And after a long thought, I realized I was considering many different moves, like knight e5, knight c5, and playing with fire to try to get knight e4 after long castle, bishop f4, rook d1 straight away. And I tried to realize, and after lots of thought, it came to my mind that bishop f4 deserves attention. I don't know how good it is. Yeah, I underestimated long castle. I realized that after I played, I'm lucky that he took on d3, because that was my idea. And I realized it's very important for me to hide my king on c2. Because with my king on c2, all the pieces are going to be free, because he doesn't have any ideas with knight e4, knight c4, and king is brilliant there. But I realized that he has a long castle, and I wasn't really sure what I'm going to play. I was hoping that it's going to be something along the lines of bishop e5, bishop e5, knight e5, rook h e8, f4, f6, and I was hoping that some kind of blockade is going to work for me. Let's say rook ad1, f e5, f5, which might work, but in general, I wasn't really satisfied with him having this option overall.
Yes, yeah.
So after king d3, I was pretty happy. Pretty happy with my position. So he went for long castle, king c2, and now, as I said, now all of a sudden two bishops are really felt, because he doesn't have a easy way to neutralize my long-term options, because now I just want to improve my pieces, potentially exchange a pair of rooks, and slowly improve my position of...
At this point, I was talking to Himank from Chess Base India. We were looking at your game. And, I was saying that I liked the bishop pair that you had. You had a lot of kind of projection with it. Yeah. But I wasn't certain about this next move, g5.
So, yeah, g5 is quite interesting to my understanding, at least, because now, again, he is sort of putting me in a sort of uncomfortable position. Because if I want to go for a win, I had two options here, either bishop e3 or bishop c1. So if I went to bishop e3, he was probably hoping for something like knight c4, rook e1, and taking here and here. And now it's pretty much completely equal. I have some microscopic advantage because of the weakness of the structure.
Yeah.
And then I realized that if I want to play for a win, I have to go all the way back after g5. So I went bishop c1. And the point with the bishop c1, I have to be unafraid of ghosts after rook h8, and to realize that his activity is pretty much empty in a way, and he doesn't have enough. And after bishop f3, that I'm gonna start slowly regrouping.
Yeah.
So he went for knight c4, and now again I don't know if I played the b3 too easily. At first I thought, okay, why I played it so quickly? Probably I didn't spend more than a couple of minutes. I don't know even that. And then I realized
and at this time as well, your opponent was starting to take a bit longer with thinking, finding himself slightly into time.
And in general, I realized even with the transformation of the advantage from the bishop pair into this, I'm going to have a small edge, which is not going to be easy for him to neutralize completely. So I went for rook d1. Let's exchange pair of this. I took, and bishop e3. And now it's pretty easy for me to come up with some kind of plan, like king d3, let's say rook f1, c4, f4, and mixing up, because all of a sudden this pawn on g5 and the structure here, pawn on a7 is hanging, so I can mix it up a little bit. And in general, I felt quite good about my position with some chances. Of course, I realized it's pretty much much closer to a draw, but overall, I thought I'm
you have a foothold with this
g5, sort of a risk-free game.
Yeah.
So, sorry. So he went king d3, and now he moved rook e6, rook f1, again part of the plan. I thought that he's going to go for rook d6, and I wasn't really sure if I'm going to go for king e4 or king c2 or something like that, but in general I felt that I have at least small edge. So he went for this, c4. To me, it looked normal, because now after check, I'm gonna just enter with the king e4, king f5, and have some ideas there. Potentially, probably not at this moment, but maybe I'm threatening to take on a7 with b6, c5 being a bailout move. So kind of, usually a sign of a good move in chess is if it does 2-3 useful things at once.
Yes, yeah.
So usually that's a good thing. So he went for b6, and now I went for f4. And again, as I said, I have some small chances objectively drawish, but anyway, it's not easy for him to...
And also the clock situation as well, right? You can also play with the pressure on the clock. He's now got 14 minutes at this point, and you've got
and it's slowly approaching into some kind of small time trouble. So I took, and now my initial idea was to go for f5, rook e8, rook f4, and then I wasn't really sure. Let's say he gives a check, he goes back rook g8, and how I should improve there. So for that reason, I decided to go for c5, which I wasn't completely certain, because at the moment it was unclear for me, should I keep my structure in a perfect on the light squares, or should I give him option of blocking it or doing something else? So that was a tricky situation. So he went for this, and now I went for rook h1, which is a principal move, and in a way, if I want to try something, I have to go for it. And now it's quite funny that this endgame, probably it's a drawish, but all of a sudden it's becoming quite strange. So I have to go. If I want to play for a win, I have to go all in. And in general, I don't know, it was unclear for me what was the evaluation of this. So he found the best move, rook f3. And because the point was, if I go for rook h7, he has a very good move, rook d3. And if I take, he covers. And if I go rook f8, rook d8. And it's a repetition because his pawn is a quicker. So for that reason, I had to start with f5. And now he found the only and the best move, rook f3. And I also...
Well, of course, is at 4 minutes as well.
Exactly.
Half an hour.
Exactly. And sort of having pressure both on the clock. And I think, even though this position might be equal, I think I have a much easier side of equality.
You have no risk.
Yeah, in a way. I thought I'm not risking at all. Probably it's true. So here I was also calculating rook h7, but it wasn't really... I didn't really understand why he wouldn't go for rook d3 again. So for that reason, I decided to go for rook h5 to cover this. I'm threatening here. g3, rook g5. He takes king f7. And now actually it's quite funny, because I wasn't really certain if I'm winning or not, because I thought it could be some kind of a strange Zugzwang, because his pawns, despite being a pawn up, his pawns are immobile. So he's gonna have to play something along the lines of king d6 and wait. And I thought at least I have potentially some ideas, let's say f6, rook g6, and just to spend some useful time potentially with, let's say, king g7 and think about it. I wasn't sure I'm winning, but I thought, okay, at least he has something to think about. And luckily for me, he went for this one, and I think he blundered king e7.
And do you think he realized it kind of at the moment as well? Like after he played it, do you think he kind of...
Not really. I think after I played, because he thought it's pretty much forced. And actually, king e5, king e7 is extremely important, because if I go for the similar stuff, let's say with king g7, it's very important, because he'll have a tempo with rook f7 check. So let's say king g7, king d7, f7, king e7, I cannot really take, and it's very important that my king is on g8, because then I have a Zugzwang. So for example, if he now gives me a check, king f8, okay, I can show just this. Let's say king d7, f7, rook f2, and now very important that I have king g8, with the point being this, and now rook g7, and now it's game over. So he cannot really, so even if he gives promotes, I take, rook f7 is not with the check, and I just take the rook. So so for that reason, king e7 was a great move. And then he realized he's probably losing, and now he started pushing the pawns, which was the best practical choice. So, and now this is pretty forcing. Yeah. And now again, he has a And it's actually important that I don't try to be too fancy with rook g4 because he's just gonna go g1. So it was still not over. I realized it's practically I have to be careful because all of a sudden it's a game of tempest in a way. So I went king e7 best move. He went here, I took, and again c4. And here I thought probably there are a couple of ways to win, but I wanted to find the most meticulous way, not to give him any chances, and I think I found the best one. Because I was considering to give him a check first, let's say rook g5, king b4, and once I take c5, but I thought I'm playing with fire a little bit because I wanted in a way to play versus this pawn if possible, not with this one, because this one is decent, and with this one I can go sort of opposite way. That's a typical team in the endgames. So I took and went rook a1. With the idea being to either put his king into some passive squares and also to combine two ideas, king coming back and also controlling his king. So he went for c5, king d6, king d4, and I at least to my understanding, this is the best practical way that I chose, because I calculated that I'm simply going to go via b5. So he went here, and I just follow him all the way back. And yeah, now I just took, because after c3, rook e3, he just resigned. But even if he goes for c3, my idea was to go king b3. And now if he goes c5, I can take. If he goes c2, I wanted to go all the way here. And now it's just game over.
Just game over.
So yeah,
you got revenge for the Dubai Open.
Or maybe to use Magnus' line, winning once is not a revenge, or something like that.
No, that makes sense as well. And I wanted to say, of course, now you're on 5 out of 6. Of course, you're a co-leader of the tournament because Anish also won today. Still early days, of course, but you must be fancying your chances pretty well for this tournament. Still 3 more rounds to go, but you must be feeling quite happy with the overall.
So far, everything is going really well, and I couldn't ask for more. Only what I could improve is the level of play, because I had luck in a couple of games, but in general, score is brilliant. So
have you got any tips or advice as well for people? Because I mean, you've had a brilliant run recently. You're European champion last year. You were top 5 in Singapore, Baku, Tashkent. Looks like, you're going to potentially be top 3 or higher here as well. Is there something special you've been doing? I mean, obviously as a kid, you ate your vegetables. You're 6'8".
Well, in general, even if I knew, I wouldn't share that. So, but overall, overall, I'm not really certain. I think I kind of stabilized a little bit, learned how to control my emotions a little bit, and sort of mix of working on chess and some practical stuff. And I think things are kind of, I found my footing in a way.
That makes sense. No, thank you so much for going through your game and speaking with us. And best of luck in the rest of your games.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aleksandar.